stage number 6 of instructional design and development is to actually then develop the content. So you can see how this is stage 6. A lot of people think that training design, instructional design is all about building the content, but you can see here that actually there's a whole lot of stages before that actually need to take place. So when it comes to your actual content, we're going to be asking ourselves, are we going to buy the learning materials? So by learning materials, we could mean learner workbooks, textbooks, PowerPoint presentations, assessments, activities, quizzes, practical case scenarios, practical outdoor activities, simulated work activities, you name it. The list really is quite endless when it comes to the actual content of training itself. For instance, you could even have audio modules or podcasts. It could be that they access that through face-to-face training, whatever. So the development of content itself, we need to be asking, are we going to buy or are we going to build? So let's look at buying first of all. Now there's lots of organisations you can buy off-the-shelf training from. Main Training are one of them. We develop training for accredited and non-accredited training in all industry types globally. But you need to ask yourself, do you want it off the shelf, just straight as it is? Or would you like that customised and contextualised to your particular working practices, to your particular work environment? Do you want it branded so that it looks like all of your other company documentation? Do you want it to have it written to your particular style guides and your particular processes and procedures? Or do you just want to buy it in editable Word format so that you can do all of that editing and contextualisation yourself? So there are a number of different ways that you can do that. You can also build them yourself. So perhaps you've decided that you do have the capacity and the capability to write your training in-house. If you've got your own training development team, you may have subject matter experts within your business who know about particular topics, who you can call upon to help you fill out the technical side of some of your content. Certainly one of the things we do is either work with an organisation with their subject matter experts or bring our own SMEs in to help with the development of particularly with technical training. So when you are building them yourself, again, are you going to do all of that on your own? Or do you want to buy the templates from an organisation such as Main Training so that your team can build into and add to it? Do you want to work with an organisation like Main Training? So your team is developing parts of it, the external team is quality assuring and developing parts of it as well. So you have this great sort of joint team effort in the development of your content. Of course, you can completely outsource it all together. So there are all the different ways in which you can actually build your content. And of course, once you're delivering it, you then need to constantly reevaluate whether that training content and material needs updating. Of course, as changes happen in the industry, in legislation, you're going to have to upgrade those as well. So I'd highly recommend that if you are building in-house or outsourcing, that you include a quote for the ongoing maintenance of training and development materials as well. Now, when it comes to putting the actual content together, one of the things I hear a lot of people saying to me is, where do we start? You know, how do we get all of this content, all of this knowledge, and sequence it in a manner that makes it not only meet the principles of adult learning, but also engage people, also meet all of the different types of learning styles. So whether that's visual learners, audio learners, kinesthetic doing learners, whether it's left brain or right brain learners, so right brains being your more creative, visual, visionary, imaginative types compared to your left brainers who are much more logical, analytical, they like statistics and information. How can we order our actual content to make sure that we're meeting all of these different considerations that we have to make? Now, I've come up with my own little model that helps businesses and people like you put that content together. So the first principle of adult learning is that learners need to have relevance. They need to know how the training is relevant to them, how it's important to them as individuals and as people. So the first thing we do in our content is have a personable or personal connection. we need to get that person to understand why this is important. Now this could be with a shocking fact, it could be with some really engaging language that makes people go, well, okay, you're talking to me, I get it, I know why this is relevant to my job, to my life, and to where it is that my career is going. So I do pink for personal. Now the second thing we need to do is include the fact that this particular training they're on is the solution to that. So we're going to be talking about what it is we're trying to avoid or what it is we're trying to gain, how this impacts the business, what key result areas or strategies this is relating to, and how of course it's important to their own career progression, so that we have that here's the problem, here's why this is here, here's how it's relevant to you, and here's how we're going to solve it. Then we need to make sure by our personal bit, we've got in the hearts, we've got in the right-brained, heart-based people. We now need to make sure we engage our left-brained, statistical, analytical people. So this is when we need to give stats, information, facts and figures and research data to really make sure that those left brain people are satisfied that this applies to them, why it's important and why it needs to be done. So for instance, if we were delivering safety training, we may give them the numbers of the number of deaths in that particular industry or the number of accidents even in that business as a result of poor training, so that we can make sure that these people get it and see why it's happening for them. The next part is to then really tailor that content, that reasoning, those figures, statistics, that personable reasons, strategic objectives to your particular business. And then to obviously provide them with the content. Now I've got the word wow bomb up here. What I mean by that is the actual content, the actual strategies, methods, techniques, step-by-step processes that they now have to follow, implement, start using in order to do their job effectively, efficiently, and to the standard expected by the organisation. This is the how they do it part. So the next stage is they've just been wow bombed, they've just had all the content thrown at them. This is the stage where you could be having people saying things like, well, how on earth am I going to start doing all this on top of everything I already have to do? This is when you can kind of have the resistance coming in. People don't like change, they also don't like having to have more to do. So this is the part where you reassure them. This is the part where you continue to persuade them the reasons why we have to do it, what gains we will get if we do, and the reasons why we need to, what things we're trying to avoid. So what will happen or go wrong if we don't do it. This is the part where we need to just reassure them that this is actually going to help them in their job. It's going to make life easier for them in the long run. It's going to make the business stronger and more profitable, which means their jobs will be safer. And indeed, that will then effectively give them a much longer career development pathway within the organisation. So this is your continuous persuasion exercise, again, how it fits into the bigger business, the bigger picture, and them. Then of course no training would be training if we didn't have some kind of practical activity or exercise. So your next part, you may have now gone through a whole module, you've related it to them, you've given them the content, you've continued to persuade them about the importance of it, and now you need to cement that knowledge and those competencies in place by getting them to turn it from theory into actual practical implementation, into practice itself. Another key principle of adult learning is that adults like to put things into practice. So this is where you have your exercises, your activities, your exams, your quizzes, whatever it may be that you were teaching them, you now put this into place, whether that's simulated or a real life exercise and have a go type scenario. And then finally, we've got our actions. So this would be about making sure they know when they're going to implement these new skills and knowledge. Is there a particular trigger point that this new stuff comes in? Is it immediately effective, or is it something that's going to be slowly implemented? How long and at what points will these new skills come into play? So that is stage 6 of developing your content and my 7 steps to putting the content together in a way that meets adult learning principles.